Dean, this is a series that we're going to interview what I consider the founding fathers of Delta College. And the purpose of this interview is for the bond team. And what I'd like the bond team to understand is kind of what our roots are and what we were trying to achieve in the beginning of Delta College. So I'd really, you don't mind the founding fathers, but that's really where we are. I'd like to know your background and how you got to Delta College.
Well, I was an instructor at Modesto Junior College, and they contacted me and asked me if I would be interested in chairing a new division at San Joaquin Delta College, the year it was first formed. And actually, I had a good job down there, and Delta College had a wonderful ag program. I was very, very happy with what we had, and I was happy with the community. But they said that they were ready to make steps to improve the program and make it competitive, because we used to steal the students from Stockton area of San Joaquin to come down to Modesto. And so I told them I would be interested, and then they asked me how much it would take to get me up here. And at that time, I think I was making $9,000 a year or something like that. And I said I wouldn't come up for less than $12,000 or $12,500. I don't remember what it was. But I actually ended up, I said I wouldn't come up unless the board was fully in support of some of the concepts that we had, or I had, what to do with the ag program. And so I interviewed the board. They didn't interview me. And I think Ed Raleigh at that time, well, I don't think he was the Dean of Instruction. And I know he came to a regional meeting with us, and I couldn't figure out what he was doing down there, but he was actually scoping me out, is what I figured out later on. But nevertheless, I interviewed the board. That same night, I was the first one on the agenda, and they decided to go with it. And Larry DeRico was also on the board, and he was hired that same night. So we were both hired the same night, but I was one agenda item ahead of him.
He said you were 7-0 and he wasn't.
Anyhow, we got, that's how I accepted the job, and so I started in July 1st of 1963.
Okay. Through the years, what was your various roles and responsibilities here at Delta?
Well, it was division chair, department chair, we called it then. It was a department. And so I was the department chair, and we worked on a number of things. And then I forget even when it was, but we didn't have a dean of vocational ed at that time. We had Barney, I can't think of his last name. Anyhow, was head of the T&I department, and he kind of coordinated all the VEA stuff. But the division chairs reported to the Dean of Instruction. So anyhow, then when Barney retired, I guess then Joe Blanchard asked me if I'd be willing to serve in the capacity, because in those days he didn't have to go through all the hassle of doing a lot of research and all that stuff. And so Joe asked me if I would serve in this capacity, and I agreed to do so. So I was the first Dean of Vocational Education at Delta.
Did you ever teach here at Delta?
Oh yeah, when I, as a department chair, I taught half-time, or actually about three-quarters time, yeah.
What did you teach?
In ag and natural resources. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Given that you were here in the genesis of Delta College, what do you remember Delta getting started, and just what you think it took to get going?
Well, we were on the old campus, and of course most of the buildings were not exactly the most beautiful things in the world. Much of them were the old facilities that they had built during War II to accommodate some of the V-12 people and that sort of thing.
What's a V-12 people?
Oh, that was a Navy officer training candidate program, and put them on the college campuses, and then they went on into other things. But anyhow, that's what that was. So I was active in terms of helping to, well, let me backtrack here a second, because, and this is very important, at the time that the board decided they wanted to do something with the ag program, you got to remember that the financial backbone of funding for the colleges was from taxes, property taxes.
Okay.
And since the majority of San Joaquin County was in our district as well as some of the adjacent counties, and obviously the backbone of this whole area is agriculture, the board was very much desirous of making sure that we had programs to accommodate the students in our area. So one of my charges, whether they gave it to me or I took it, was to do a lot of work with community groups. And so I became active, you know, with the Chamber of Commerce, and they had an ag section there. I worked closely with various grower groups and so on. So we did a lot of work. We had a very strong advisory committee, and we spent a lot of time going out into the community to study the needs and try to find out exactly what they wanted and what we should be doing. And so we used the guidance of the advisory committee members to determine what our curriculum would be and so forth. So it was developed from the community, the foundation of our ag community, into the college, and we had a wonderful working relationship. Farm Bureau,
Okay.
the ag Extension Office, the commissioners, and so forth. So they were very important.
So was the community totally in supportive of Delta College at the beginning?
No. Again, you remember that San Joaquin Delta, it wasn't San Joaquin Delta College, it was Stockton College. And so it was part of the unified district thing here. And so we had a lot of work to do. One of the first things I did with the first year I was here, we had two older ag teachers that had been here prior to my coming on board. So there were three of us then when I joined. Hi.
Hi, Maria.
There were three of us then when I joined the group, and we all worked together and did a lot. But the second year, I'd made a commitment, or the board made a commitment to me that they would enlarge the ag department by hiring at least 4 new people. I didn't expect them all to come on board the next year, but nevertheless, that's what happened. We brought 4 new instructors on the next year, so we had a strong group of fresh faces, and our hiring process, we wanted to make sure that we had a commitment from them to work with the community and go out visiting students and recruiting and doing that. They did very well.
Okay. The current Delta College campus, we're going to talk about the farm in a minute. What was the vision of this campus right here? What did you want to build? What were you thinking about?
Well, I've got to digress a little bit, because as they started talking about a new campus, and we lost one bond issue, and then
I didn't realize that.
I was maybe I might be.
That's
no,
okay.
I think we did lose one. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and then the Bortolazzo, they brought Bortolazzo on board, and we worked very, very hard to try to address the needs of the community. We had some good students from over in Rio Vista and up by Cortland and so on. And I know I spent, well, when we were starting to promote the new campus under Bortolazzo, I went out and made a lot of talks in the outlying district and community seeking their support. Fortunately, we had some real good students that had come from there, and they were happy with what they were getting at Delta. And so they were terrific emissaries to promote the college and promote our programs. So I might have lost where you were taking me there, but
The vision for the campus here. And
so anyhow, as part of the process, and I think this is very, very important, is process. The one thing they did when they started going toward the new campus, they did hire some consultants, and the consultants worked with each of the divisions, and they worked very closely with our staff members, and the staff worked closely with them, talking about what we needed, what the advisory committees wanted, because we used the advisory committees. We had At one time here, we had over 500 different members in the community on our advisory committees. And those people gave us wonderful input in terms of what would be needed in the campus and facilities and equipment and programs. So we worked with the communities, we worked with the community members, we worked with the students, naturally, and our staff members were full of ideas. They had all kinds of ideas. So that was all important. And on that basis, the consultants recommended that they could see this kind of a growth occurring in different programs. That's hard to project and impossible, really, but nevertheless, they made projections. And it was on the basis of their consultants talks with staff members, with the advisory committees, with the division chairs, that they started setting up the parameters within which they would do the construction.
My understanding is there was site selection, that there was different sites considered.
There were, and I was, because I knew the community, I was included in many of these tours to look at different sites. We had sites right out across 99 on Hammer Lane.
I didn't realize that.
And there was a big one there they looked at. They looked at one that was down at the south end of town, just east where that big new development, Werner, I think it is going to go in down there. We looked at a number of different sites. Then they settled on this one because they could get it and it was more centrally located, and they seemed to think that it would fit their needs better. But it was all with parts of the process with the consultants in terms of the numbers of students, where they'd be coming from, what we wanted to do, and how could we best serve the community. And so that's what they came up with.
The funding for this campus, where did it come from?
We had, as I recall, probably Larry gave you better information, but it seems to me we had about $6 million in reserve, and then they went with this $29 million bond issue, if I remember correctly. These figures escape me, but it was somewhere in that neck of the woods. Maybe it was 22 million, that's what it was, because, again, for some reason, Bortolazzo and Larry Drico and some of the top administrators, I was just a department chairman, asked me to go over with them to the Bay Area and meet with the architects when they were presenting some preliminary plans. And that's when Bortolazzo and I had a falling out, because he had promised us that the $30 million, or what reserves we had in the money that was from the bond, would fully pay for the campus. And the architects told him, Julio, there's no way it can do it. It's going to cost at least $36 million. And I'd been out talking to all these communities, people promising them that $30 million would do the whole thing. And he and I got sidetracked a little bit on that issue. But I credit Joe Blanchard primarily with this. He's the one who made it happen. And he not only got everything done that Bortolazzo originally envisioned, but he got that the Atherton Center over and above that. So he did a wonderful job.
The buildings, well, let's go back to the architecture. What are some of the, if you could remember some of the designs that you considered?
Well, again, come back to the word concepts. The architects had they're presented to us, and the division chairs were key players in this whole thing, or department chairs. So the architects came in with the first concept of having 5-story buildings. And the department chair said, hey, that's not going to work. That's just too tall. We're not, my God, you're not used to anything that high. You're in Stockton. Yeah. So they did come back to the 4-story building, which still was objected to by many of us. But nevertheless, that was a concept that was put in here. The idea that the architect said that we're going to kind of follow the theme of the gold rush days and mining facilities and that sort of thing. However, when we went over to visit the architects, I saw some plans they had for another campus It's the same damn thing almost. I forget where that was, in Podunk or wherever it was, but it wasn't related to mining, but nevertheless, that's what we had. And that, nobody objected to the idea of kind of tying in a little bit to mining facilities and so on, so that was all right. But then the other thing, and this was not architecturally, it was before, and then Jim Keene, who was really in charge of the construction and so forth mostly.
He was an engineer, I mean.
He was an engineer, but I'm not sure where I think the division chairs had a good part in that, but I think it was Keene and maybe architects or whoever came up with the idea to have certain centers devoted to occupational needs or vocations.
Okay.
Whether it's ag or nursing or T&I or whatever. And the science, so they did that. And we all bought into that. We thought that was great. And naturally, with the general ed classes being offered in each of the areas as well. So.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, so that worked out good. We all were enthusiastic about it.
I understand that the Cunningham building was the first one to go up. Can you maybe talk about what you saw when the first building went up and how you handle it with students? That, my understanding, the rest of the program was at UOP.
Yeah, the Cunningham Center did open first, and the neat part of it is that they did have some general ed courses that, even though the students were, say, majoring in science or law enforcement,
Okay.
They had enough general ed courses that they could accommodate the needs of most of the students. Obviously, some of the students had to go back and forth between the two campuses. And so we transitioned in that fashion. It worked fairly smoothly.
What do you remember about Cunningham when it was being built? I haven't been able to find any pictures of the buildings as they were getting built. Do you remember a lot of work before you even saw any buildings, or what was your impression?
Oh, there was a lot of groundwork done, obviously, for the perimeter work for the utilities and that sort of thing. That was all done ahead of time. So other than that, I don't remember anything special about it. Okay.
And so did you have any classes in Cunningham, the new building?
No, then in 1973 or 4 or something like that is when I became vocational dean. So when they moved over, I was the last administrator on the old campus, and since I was the only administrator there, I had the opportunity. We started classes at 7:30. I had the opportunity to be there 7:30 until 10 o'clock at night.
Oh, yeah, great.
And Monday through Friday. So, but they had to have somebody there, so I did it.
Tell me about when the buildings for vocational and just your impression, and then how you moved over into them.
Well, there's always a gap between plans and the finished product, and they're always going to run into difficulties. And as an example of one, when they were building Holt, or had built it, and they started moving in the machine shop stuff, and when you get those very fast spinning lathes and so on, and if your frequency of your light beams is such, it can make a fast looking object look like it's standing still. And so both the advisory committee members and the instructor obviously saw that this electrical system is not going to work and have to make changes. So they did. So that kind of thing happened all the time.
Okay, and what programs, what vocational programs were here to start?
Well, the law enforcement over in Cunningham, and I forget the sequence in which they
That's okay.
Occupied the building. I think, Holt and the gym facilities were second. But anyhow, then Cunningham came on board, and then I think I know the last one was Shima.
Okay. The actual programs when they were here at Delta, the vocational, so there was automotive, I heard the police, carpentry. So what else were they teaching in the shops?
Well, now, wait, what period are you talking about? Because we had all the programs over there before we came here.
Okay,
So we had all those vocational programs either there on the old campus or here.
and you moved them all at once?
No,
Okay.
no, they all sequenced in as they completed
Okay.
the buildings.
Okay,
Some of them, Shima, as I recall it, we moved in pretty much at Christmas time, during the Christmas vacation period. So the ag people moved over here at that time, and then they started their class. I think that, well, I don't remember the year, I hate to say it. So anyhow, that might have been 74, somewhere in there, but, you know.
so you had to go back and forth?
I didn't. Most of the time I was down there, although I did come out here. And I did come out here, that's right, but most of the time I was down there.
When did we buy the farm?
Well, the board, when we originally were looking at property and the initial advisory committee that they worked with, community group, when they wanted to establish a campus here, they thought, okay, we'll have a central campus first. Then originally they were looking at 2 other sites. They were looking at somewhere in the south end of the county and one up in the north end of the county. And then, and again, I forget the actual year it happened.
That's okay, we just,
But the board went and bought the Manteca site,
Okay.
and that was purchased specifically to start a second campus.
really?
It was not purchased as a school farm. Matter of fact, Joe called me in Blanchard, and he said, Dean, we've got this second campus, and he said, and this had been several years after it had been, we'd already been having it. He said, I'm afraid the board might be tempted to sell this and raise money. He said, would the ag people be interested in making a farm down there? And so the ag group got together and we talked it over and said, yeah, but said, you know, you can't be running that farm yourself. You got to have some help. So they got a manager down there, but that's kind of how that went. It was specifically purchased as a second site, and then secondarily was used as a farm.
Okay. The agriculture program, there's always been tension about the ag program and whether we need it, whether we don't. Because it was in the day that you were here too. What does the ag program mean to the community, in your opinion?
Well, when you think of San Joaquin County as ranged from the 5th to the 8th largest agricultural producing county in the entire United States, it kind of indicates that maybe there is some need for agriculture and ag business here at Delta College. And last year, the ag income was farm income. This is gross, not net. Gross farm income exceeded $2 billion. That's not a shabby amount of change. And so economically, it's one of the driving forces of our whole economics in our area. So I don't think there's any question about the need and the value of having a program in ag.
Are we, right now, through the years, we were tightly coupled to the associations that you were talking about, at least during your tenure?
Oh, I think our ag group has had a wonderful relationship with the community. I think of Lloyd Martell and the work that he's done in viticulture and the enology courses he taught here. He was just the people in the wine industry have nothing but respect for him and for what he's done. Doug Fritz was very, very active and went out and so many community activities. What one does in the community is a reflection of Delta College. And I think the ag group were terrific in that. Gary Blomgren worked closely with the parks people and a lot of our natural resource stuff. And he's the one who moved the old schoolhouse that's used out there at the Historical Society now.
Okay.
Our students rebuilt it. Our students in the classes use those as laboratory experiences for so many things, whether it was landscaping or construction and so on. And that big sign that's right out here on the street on Pacific Avenue came courtesy of Gary Blomgren and the ag group. They designed it. Well, no, they worked with the design, but they did the actual carrying out of construction of that sign and putting it up, yeah.
I'm going to throw you some softballs here. Was there ever differences of opinion about what we should do here?
Hell yes.
What? I thought it was all, everyone agreed.
Any other questions? No, I think, Lee, it's natural. You've got intelligent people, you've got people that have strong opinions, you've got people that have very strong beliefs. We have, each of us have peculiarities, except me and thee, and sometimes I worry about thee.
Really? Okay.
But, so, yeah, we had them. But we had, I think, one of the good things that I felt good about on the whole campus, we had a very strong family relationship between the faculty members within divisions and within the campus. Our ag group particularly started a lot of things. We started the Christmas party. They never used to have a get-together. And here a bunch of jerks out in the ag department get together and ended up with some hot Dr. Pepper, and we'd go buy some cookies and have a few things and invite the faculty and classified people to come over and join us and have a little get-together. That coordination kind of thing, it just builds esprit de corps. The pancake breakfast that you're still having was started by the ag group, and they did it all by themselves originally. Now I think it's changed, but nevertheless. And we had a good relationship between the classified and the certificated people and administration. Very good.
Okay. What, in your opinion, if you had to pick the people that were instrumental in getting this campus built, and I'm sure, I know it was a large effort, but who would be the ones that were the most instrumental, in your opinion?
Well, obviously, Jim Keene provided
the engineering.
The engineering leadership on that end of the field.
Is he still with us, by the way?
No,
okay.
He's passed away.
I remember him.
Was really a neat guy. But I think we sometimes think that excuse me, Raul, the college revolves around the top administration. I've got news for you. The top administration is there to serve the middle management, who is there to serve the teachers.
Okay.
And so I give a lot of credit. Most of our programs, they don't originate up in the instruction office. Mm-hmm. They originate by instructors and by division chairs. You're sitting in the electron microscopy room here. One of these was.
Yes, correct.
And Vic Remillard is the one that started that program. By the way, he's going to be with us. He's going to spend the next 2 or 3 days at our home, and I'm looking forward to seeing him this afternoon.
Is he coming to October 1st, the breakfast? That's okay, we can talk later.
No, I remember he's only going to be here Tuesday.
Okay,
yeah.
I remember Vic. He's a good guy.
Yeah, but he started the electron microscopy program. The backing for that came from the advisory committee, and his advisory committee members were not Stocktonians. They came from all over the East Bay and that area, and UOP. But that's where your leadership comes from, is from the faculty members and and the advisory committees, I can't overemphasize my respect and appreciation for what advisory committee people did for us.
That's great.
The food service program, the advisory committee was so key in that. And then you got to have a faculty member and the division chair that supports that kind of thing. And if they do, they can make it go.
That's excellent. Let's see. What, do you remember I heard about the electricity when you tried to move some of the technical programs in. Do you remember any other surprises that come to mind with, once you start going? Because we're learning the hard way that there's surprises.
Well, no, but obviously these are very complex projects, so there's nothing simple, there are no simple answers to them. And you have so many different facets, all of which have to be considered and addressed, that there are going to be little boo-boos. And so you do the best you can. You try to get the engineering. For instance, where they had the little individual air conditioner units throughout the campus, there were a lot of us that questioned that, but and the fact that they'd be running all the time and all that sort of thing. But those are glitches that you have to address, and you face them and try to resolve them as best you can.
So then that's when you decided on the central plant concept.
Well, that came after I left, so
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. I'm going to have these people, the team, ask some questions in a second. Again, we're a new team. We're working, and we're going to succeed. What kind of advice would you give the people now here at Delta that are moving the construction forward?
Well, the first thing I would say, you need to work with the division chairs and the instructors. Certainly the division chairs. I guess you call them deans now. But they need to be included, and you need to seek out their advice and their thoughts. I was just talking to Hazel, and she was talking about this new hospital that the state's going to put in down here on the old site, or the old juvenile center anyhow. As I understand it, there's 1,800 beds or something in there, according to the newspaper. There are more hospital beds in that one facility than in all the other facilities we have put together. I can't believe that, but that's what I understand from the paper. Well, think about the potential for a training program to provide health services, nurses, and technicians for that program out there. You've got that Manteca campus. Would that not be a good site to have some training programs? Maybe. I'm sorry, Raul, but I have no idea why they have never done anything with Manteca. It was built for a second site. For some reason, the board jumped clear over to the god-awful outer edges of humanity to select a site. And we've got a site right there. It's available, you paid for it, and it would serve, you could have specialized programs, for instance, in nursing and health sciences down there. It would just be incredible. I could see it, and the state, I don't know how many billions of dollars they're pouring into this. Surely they can find a few $1 million to help with facilities or something there, and we're going to need to have a lot of additional help. There's no way in the world the college could all of a sudden key up to start training all those nurses. They're not going to happen at once, but even so, just the rotation of them, it's going to be a tremendous opportunity for just a gargantuan leap in our health science program. So your division chairs and faculty need to be stimulated to think about, hey, what can we do? Are we willing to accept this challenge, put in the work, and go there? Advisory committees, I'll come back to them again. you've got some big brains out in those advisory committees. They know, they've got their feet on the ground, they know what's being done. Why don't we take advantage of them? So seek their input, seek their guidance. Talk to those people about where do you think we're going to go from here? What are the opportunities for us? I would just really think there'd be some wonderful opportunities there.
Okay,
So I'm talking about division chairs,
okay.
I'm talking about advisory committees, faculty members, and
The division chairs, so you said that they were some of the keys. So they need to be really strong and in the community, is that it? They need to be,
oh, I think so. I think if the faculty members and the division chairs aren't active in the, and administrators, obviously, but aren't active in the community, they're missing a tremendous big link.
okay. Now, excuse us just a second. If you don't mind, we'll have some of the team members ask some questions here.
Could I just ask
Sure.
you to leave in a minute? So I just
Okay.
wanted to tell Dean, I thank you so much for doing this because it's really enlightening for us to hear the comments. And I think now we all wish we probably would have done this a long time ago. Maybe we could have avoided some of the mistakes that we made. But it's been very useful. And just one of the things I learned just listening to you that I didn't know is that about the Manteca campus, that it was originally purchased for a second campus site. Ever
Absolutely.
since I've come here, all I've heard is that's the farm, and it's gonna stay the farm, and it's, and, you know, that, this and that, somewhere along the line, we lost that vision, and we thought that was a farm, and it's gotta stay a farm, and no one ever said, it's the first time I've ever heard anyone
Me
say
too.
that was a site for a second campus, and I wish we would have known that a long time ago. I wish somebody would have
Yes.
said, did you realize that's, you know,
Yes.
that was purchased for a second campus? I mean, I just saved us a lot
I
of
know.
trouble and you know,
Great.
heartbreak and so on and so forth, but I don't think any of us knew that.
Well, some people think that many years of experience on the board is a valuable thing, but you had people on the board that knew that damn well. And, pardon me. And when Joe asked us to take it, we thought, what in God's name are we going to do with 160 acres? You can't go out there and have kids spending all their lab time mowing lawns or cutting alfalfa or knocking almonds. And so we talked about what are some of the constructive ways we can utilize some of that property. And this is, again, tying into the community. We worked with the Ag Extension Service and the University of California and put in that demonstration plot of almonds down there where you could actually make some money off of it at the same time you're doing a service to the state and the almond industry and the university. But it's that kind of cooperation that you get by people working closely with the Extension Service, their farm advisors, with the university, and it was a wonderful program. It was educational. It put the land to good use, because otherwise we rented it out or done something else, but that's no point in having that property for that. So no, that was not set up just for a farm in any way, shape, or form.
Interesting. Well, I thank you for coming. I've got to run back to the office, but I really appreciate it. Look forward to seeing the rest of this on tape.
Okay, Ralph, good to see you.
Maria?
Good to see you.
Good to see you, Maria. You didn't give me a hug or a kiss.
I know.
Well, I'm coming over to get one.
Oh, off camera.
You guys don't know, but we neck a lot.
See you.
Good to see you, too. She's blushing.
She was a baby when you were here.
Yeah, I know she was.
I worked in the
Yep.
construction office when I started as a student, so this was an honor to have met you and work with you. I know that, from your perspective, being more in the instructional related area and in the construction of the building, sometimes the involvement may not be as direct, but since I'm in that field or in that area, I just wanted to get your perspective from the construction, some of the construction nightmares that could happen with, building big construction, obviously. Do you have any recollection of any construction nightmares since, the buildings were starting to build, kind of finding, I know we're still finding things underground as we go through through those things, but we've had a few of those projects where we had kind of major nightmares, if you would, so I don't know if you have any recollection of anything like that.
Oh, those kind of things happen. It's inevitable. You have plans, and it says that from point A to point B is 237 feet, and it goes from here to here, but somebody, when it was constructed some way, may went from here over to here or some other darn thing. So you go to put something in and you cut through a line. So we've had that happen, but even on a home, you find that constantly. You think you know where you got a pipe or a wire or something, but some carpenter or electrician or plumber does it a little different. So you've got inspectors on ground site that's supposed to make sure that it goes where it's supposed to go, but somehow things happen. So I don't get real shook up about that kind of thing. It's a pain, and not the word I usually use, the fanny, but you live through it.
Part of construction, I guess. Do you remember who specifically was involved in what we call now review of the scope of work? You know, not so much obviously seeing the architectural drawings, but more specifically on the technical side. Do you remember or recall having a group or task force that I would imagine facilities would have been involved, but any other groups that you remember? Was instruction part of that, or?
I don't think there were any real specific groups. I think, and again, I can answer better from the ag standpoint. Obviously, in the construction process, we would come over and we were checking what was happening over in Shima.
Okay.
What's the point right there, though? It goes back, the other thing you point, the original architecture drawings that they submitted to us, there was no entrance from the Shima parking lot into any of those classrooms or labs directly from there. They had to come down through between Danner and Shima and then come back around and go over here. And we took one look at those plans. We said, what in the heck are you thinking about? You got to have a door over here. And so we did that. So, but again, it's what I'm saying is you get the faculty and your division chairs involved, and you spot a lot of these things before you get a problem. But, and even then you're going to have problems, but at least.
But you had that opportunity of reviewing.
Oh, yeah, you bet. I think that's an absolute must, because it's inevitable. You're going to have arguments. Now, wait a minute, you don't have any electrical outlets here, or you don't have plumbing here, whether it's a chemistry lab or something like that. I know that those issues came up frequently, and said, no, you got to do this. And so that's why getting the faculty and division chairs involved can solve a lot of problems. These consultants don't know anything. Anything they want to find out, they come and ask you about it.
Yep.
Then they put it together in a report and charge you $500,000.
No. Dave, any?
One of the things that we have discussed, and some of the things that we try to look forward to, is the now, the future, the now to the future. So we try to look at, now and 20 years on. Was that ever a thought for you guys as far as that goes? You mentioned that you had power issues, and the like. Was that ever a thought? You're going to build for now, but what about 30 years out?
No, that was a key point that we tried to incorporate. But the trouble is, in 1960, who knew that you're going to have all these damn computers and computer geeks running around loose?
I know.
So they sprout up like mold. And nobody could predict the power needs that they needed for computer science. And even when we started that, and we got a little bit of power down there, my God, the power needs that they had for those old first computers, why, you just couldn't believe it. Then you get into the problem, okay, now what do you do with all this heat? So you try to project forward, but it's obviously pretty difficult. you do the best you can, but we definitely tried. And that's why I think the potential for doing something on that Manteca site and tying it in with the hospital that they're going to build, the state's going to build there, this is in sight. It's something you can see. Now, why can't we cooperate with the state and build a facility down there to move in that direction? That would just be so exciting to me. And that's not much vision because it's right there in front of our eyes. You know it's there. You know the need is there. The question is, how do we get from here to there to meet that need? And this is where I think you need to have your brainstorming and come up with ideas.
Yes.
Thank you.
But back on the other, though, there are so many changes that take place that it's impossible to meet everything. So I don't think you have to feel badly if you don't anticipate that you're going to need this, that, or something else. You do the best you can.
Okay.
And they worked hard in trying to look forward. Yeah.
Okay.
Great.
Judy?
I have a lighthearted question. Next to the koi pond in the Village Danner, there's a sign that points all the different directions to locations. Can you give us any history on that? Because when I walk past it, I smile and I think, that's pretty cool. How did that come about? What's the history
Well,
on that?
I forget who came up with that idea, and I don't know if it was the architects or, I don't remember where that idea came from. But again, it kind of ties back. Remember that the campus only started in 1963, and we're trying to increase people's awareness about the area that we serve. And so that was part of the concept behind that sign, was just to point out that, in this direction, and it really is something. Yeah, I like that.
Do you know Vince Brown?
No, but until now.
Okay.
Well, actually, Dean, I'll tell you, I have a kind of a humorous proof story about the fact that you were around at 10 o'clock at night. I was a young man. I was probably, maybe 27 years old, and I was teaching here at Delta for USF. And we were housed here for many years. And it was one of those 6 to 10 o'clock at night Bachelor of Science degree completion programs that USF ran for years and years and paid Delta the rest.
Was that on the old campus or here?
No, it was here.
Okay.
And I knew I wasn't supposed to have that cup of coffee in the classroom, but I didn't think I was going to get caught. And I could remember you coming down the walkway, and I can't remember which center up we were having it in, but I can remember you looking through the glass and giving me the finger. And I knew I'd been caught, and I went outside, and I remember that you knew my name. I was pretty impressed that you said, Mr. Brown, if I come back here again, I don't want to see that coffee. You were professional and courteous about it, but there was no question in my mind that the jig was up on the coffee.
Well, we had a pretty strong policy then, and I don't necessarily agree with the policy, but if you got one, you enforce it. And so I hated to do that, but
Well, no, my question to you is that, and I agree wholeheartedly with you as a member of the bond team, that the great, and I certainly agree with Lee, and that's why I was happy to be chosen to be on the bond team, and that is that you can't buy or replicate from any consultant the ownership of the people who are going to live there. That's just not available on the market. I mean, Kathy Roach, I don't know if you've met Kathy Roach, she's about as close to a cohort in what we're doing as I've ever seen from the outside. And it's a different world now than it was when this campus was built. And I guess I agree wholeheartedly with you on getting these advisory committees composed of faculty members. We have a little bit of a tough problem because we don't have the faculty contract settled, but I agree wholeheartedly with you. I'm just not quite sure that times have been significantly changed in order to get people used to give their input because they knew they would live with the product of their input. I'm now finding it somewhat more difficult to get people's input because the almighty dollar becomes thrown into the mix, or control of something gets thrown into the mix, or the shared governance process gets thrown into the mix. And I'm wondering if you have any, if you would have any techniques or ideas that you might impart on us on how we can, I know we can't go all the way back to the past, but maybe we could return to the past in some way by honoring some of these participants, or by, I'm not sure what it is, but I'm pretty sure there's several ways to skin a cat and get some of that feel back that I watched go on as a young man here.
How do we get started?
Well, it's a good question. I've often said, did you ever try to push a wet noodle? It just folds in front of you. And if you've got to get people to be willing to give support. And I used to have a sign on my desk, I forget the exact wording, but it was something like, people support those things they help create. So the question is how, and I'm gathering this is what the problem is getting them to help create. I think, number one, including division chairs in a lot of these discussions as they go along and make them a part of the process. And then hopefully they will take that spirit and that feeling back to their faculty and get some support from them. I would think that in any division there are, for instance, if you're doing something in the business division, that if you told Jan that this is what we're attempting to do, what do you think about it? What does the faculty think about this? Just as an example, I don't know whether this is true or not, but I've heard comments from the physical science people that they weren't included in the discussion to tear down Cunningham and build a whole new physical science building. I don't know, is that true?
I don't think it's true.
But
Well,
we
I've heard-
weren't there.
I've talked to at least some of the faculty members and asked them, well, where did this come about? They'd tell me, I don't know. And, you know, I've seen them at social events or something like that. But the point is that if the question about discussion of tearing down Cunningham, just as a case in point, was first taken to the division chairs and asking, what do you need and what do you think about this? And get some faculty input and come back to me, or let's meet together with the faculty. I would think that given some feeling from the top administration and from your team, taking it out to division chairs and faculty and asking their support to give me some feedback on this. Certainly there'll be some of them. I can't believe that none, I'm sure there'll always be some that could care less, but hopefully you'd get some feedback and support. Because I think you hit it right in the head, Vince, is that you've got to have support from those people. And so they've got to have the feeling that whatever they say is going to have some meaning and be some input, not just a matter of wagging tongue, but that it will have some impact. I think if they had a feeling that it would make a difference, I would think they would be willing to do it. I would hope they would.
No, I think they would be.
But they've got to be, we got a problem, these are the issues. Let's start off with some concepts. This is what we might be considering. Where do we want to go? What are the avenues to follow? What would it take to do it? I'm sure that they would give you some help, or at least some of the better members would. I know they would. I hope. I don't know what your feeling is on the campus anymore. Obviously, I'm so far gone. And
Well, my feeling is exactly what you've been expressing, and that is what Lee brought together in this bond team, which was people who love this institution. And I distinctly remember you as a much younger man caring a great deal for this institution.
oh, I did, and I still do. I still do.
Who cared deeply for this institution, and Joe Blanchard.
Yeah.
I was very young then, or relatively young, but I do remember that there was no lack of caring and passion
That's what you need, to get some,
It's somewhat different times now, but I think all human beings still have what your desk sign said, which was people give,
yeah,
have ownership
support,
of things they
yeah,
create.
exactly. If they
And
create it,
I'm
they're gonna
afraid-
support
I'm
it.
afraid when we had outside consultants, we totally missed out on that opportunity, and we're paying for it now.
Mhm.
Greg? Thanks, Vince.
So you said that, people support what they create. Now, obviously, you played a pretty key role in the development of this college, and I think it's spectacular. I hope to
We all do.
retire from here someday. In the very far out future.
I need to see you after this meeting.
When you, if you had the opportunity to jump in a time machine and go back to one day, one event, one decision, is there anything you'd revisit and just completely go another way? I mean, you made thousands of decisions over the years you worked here. Are there any of those decisions that looked good at the time, you were sitting in the middle of this crisis or this opportunity or something, and you had this, it looks different than it looks now looking back many years later, and you wish you could just go back and undo it?
I don't have anything that hits me in the side of the head at the moment. There are little things that I would have done differently. I can say honestly, I have no major regrets. I did some stupid things personally that I would like to go back and do over. But in terms of the campus and that sort of a thing, I think people acted in good faith. They were enthusiastic, they were dedicated, committed, repeating myself.
Mhm.
I don't have any glaring things that hit me on that at all.
So now when you, it must be it's a feeling I hope to have someday that, 40 years from now I can drive past the college and think about the days when I worked there. When you drive past, are there any special memories, any things that you're just really very proud of that you did? I mean, other than the fact that, you drive past this thing that is such a huge part of Stockton and our entire community, and you were there at the ground floor and were making decisions about what, eventually became this wonderful place. Are there any just really proud moments, anything that specifically you can think back that you're just really excited you're a part of?
Well, I think there's no question that one could not help but be excited and be proud of what we developed on this site.
Mhm.
The ag department actually farmed part of this site.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, before, when it was still owned by the state, and we came out and raised some oats and oat hay and stuff, and just as a means of raising a little extra money for our projects that we were working on. And so we took great pride in coming out here and going around the campus. I hunted pheasants right over here.
On the campus?
Well, it wasn't the campus then, but
They don't
Really?
let you do that anymore.
Oh,
no, there was no Pershing,
No more
there
of
was
that.
no Pershing through there either. But, we spent a lot of time out here, just the staff did. And students, we'd come out and, like I said, plant some crops and raise them, cut hay and sell the old hay and that sort of thing. We had a strong commitment to the site, and we really felt good about it.
When
So,
I talk to anybody from those days, and what I feel from them, they don't necessarily say it, there was a strong sense of ownership.
oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I would come down ride bicycle down or drive when they were building Sheeman, come prowl down here when I wasn't supposed to be, just to see what was going on and kind of follow them. I crawled around in the superstructure over there in Atherton and so forth when I had no business doing it, but I was interested to see what was going on and what it looked like. And a lot of us did. And we got chased off more than once, too. But we did feel that way. So my concern now is not one of, it's a concern that affects me deeply, that the exterior of the campus is not looking as good as it should, in my opinion. And I think we need to do a better job of maintenance. I've written letters to the board, and it didn't do me any good, but it made me feel better. I think we need to spend time in being proud of our campus and getting it up to snuff. I don't know what it looks like now, but I know Vic Remillard was here a year or so ago, and we came down and visited the electron microscopy lab, the new building. I was appalled that it was no landscaping around it. Maybe there is now. I haven't prowled around it.
It's gotten better,
Okay.
but probably not where it should be eventually.
So a lot of mine is concern about the deterioration, and of course I hate to see all of this plowing up of some of our areas where in these new buildings. I understand you got to expand and that sort of thing, but so some of the changes I don't especially like, but the original thing I was very proud of. I was proud to be part of it. And when you've got 500 emissaries and advisory committee members going out into the community, just think of how that ripple effect goes out in terms of the good feeling in the community. I don't know how many advisory committees they have anymore, or how much they use them, or how actively. But when I was here, they were very, very active. And that was one of my strong points that I kept pushing our division chairs.
Anyone else? Jim?
Actually, I do have a question. The Sheeman building, when it was first laid out many years ago, part of it was, I could see when I went over there where the radio station was, part of it was laid out to be a TV studio. Am I wrong about that? There was a control room and studio, and it wasn't built out initially?
I don't think it was built initially for that. Initially, it was set up for a student service deal. I think they had a pool table over there. And then the TV facilities and so forth moved. It was kind of a student, I don't know,
It was the-
social center.
Yeah, it was the student activities corral, they called it. And they had
Okay, thank
the
you.
pool table and for the students to hang out. And the TV studio came about just recently within.
Oh,
Because it looked like, when I went over there, the small room where the radio station is at was actually set up to be like a control room looking out into the studio.
That was
So-
part
Well-
of the remodeling, I think that.
We did have a radio program then, and so that could be, yeah. See, I'm not even sure exactly which unit or room you're talking about, but we did have a program in radio at that time, yeah.
Yeah, it's back over there now.
Okay.
And I heard that what was supposed to be the TV studio was turned into a dance studio first, and then the student services went over there. Is that correct?
It was the student activities all along, and then it got turned into the TV studio.
Okay.
Any other questions for Mr. McNeilly? This was great, Dean, and we really appreciate it. All your advice is, we know from the heart and we take very seriously. We're going to do the best, the most efficient job that we can do right now, is what we're going to do. And our marching orders is to execute as fast as we can. And so we need to know, that's why you're here, not is for us to learn what the ideas were when we built this. And I really, really appreciate it. It's a very good learning moment for us. And
Before I go, let me ask a question.
Sure.
This mountain house, what do they call it over there?
Mountain House.
Mountain house. How did that site ever get selected?
I honestly don't know. It was selected by the time we took over, and the commitment was there, you know.
Horton was there.
Yeah, it was when Horton was here, Bob Uberin, way before even the current people, they had chosen that.
No, I know that. I know it
But I-
precedes.
But I don't know how. Do you know, Maria?
Well, I know that they had worked on having a site in the South County area, and I don't know if he was still here when they started with, but I know it was with Bob, started the planning, and there were different sites that actually had been selected, and one of them was actually what they call the antenna farm. And it was also another place actually on 11th Street first, and then the antenna farm came about where it was the 100 acres, I believe, that was donated by the federal government. But then as they started with the testings, that's when they discovered that the gas line that was going right through the middle. And then of course they have to give it back, because I know Bob was not going to have that liability. And that's when the new search started. But, you know, it actually started as a partnership with the three agencies, which was Delta College, Tracy, and the city of Tracy and Tracy Unified. And for many, many years, that partnership, that's what all of those sites that they looked at first was intended to be a partnership between the three agencies. And then, obviously, I think it was after the free land was given back when the city kind of went away, and then it just became a partnership between Delta College and Tracy Unified. And that was the reason that the portable that was moved from here was transferred to the grounds
Tracy.
where Tracy Unified School, because they were still in a partnership at that point.
And we did a lot of planning together. I remember
And
that.
it's been 10 years, because it was supposed to be we were supposed to own it for 10 years, and after the 10 year, it was going to, the ownership was going to be passed on to Tracy, and, you know, hoping that by after the 10 years, we would have a site for Delta College, and we're there now, but it's been a very, very long endeavor,
And you can tell, you know, we're not pretending that it wasn't acrimonious, because it is now. But the Mountain House one was selected. It's, as we speak right now, it's the civil engineering's going in, the sewage is going in. The commitment, what we have to do is build. That's not, so but we understand that there's real differences of opinion on the site. We're not denying that.
I think our position right now is that carrying out the marching orders, not necessarily we're involved in making that decision.
In 2005, there was a 4-3 vote at the board, and that was really the pivotal point for that mountain house. And from that point forward, the board really hasn't wavered on mountain house. So everybody's marching orders have been, make mountain house work.
Well, I can't help but ask to think about it. Maybe it is too late, but I can't believe the board ever, how they got a 4-3 vote on that is beyond me. And I wondered, that partially my question was that a board-initiated action to get that
Yep.
site to start with? And if it
Yep.
was a board-initiated action, maybe it isn't too late to change, because you spend a lot of money over there, but you could be dumping a hell of a lot more money in it and still not have something that's going to serve our community.
We
I-
understand.
That's incredible. Okay, sorry about that.
That's okay. That's what you're here for.